done for. Everyone get out.
Greetings, sailors, and welcome to my very first World of Warships viewer replay. A whole viewer replay. Now, if you've watched any of my other World of Warships videos, you'll know the problems I was having, but I'll give a brief recap anyway. Basically, the fact that the World of Warships replays just finish. The client just closes after they're finished, and they just finish at the instant of the last kill, was causing me some problems. Because with Bandicam's client record option, that meant that the video file, I literally couldn't stop the recording in time. Like the fact that it finishes instantly on that last kill, my reflexes aren't that good. So that was corrupting the video file, and therefore I could not record it that way. Now, with World of Tanks 9.9 replays, they also do a similar thing now. Instead of that little box popping up and saying the battle has finished, or the replay is finished, they also now, the client just closes. But crucially, after the final kill in a World of Tanks game, the replay has a couple more seconds. And in those couple more seconds, that's ample time to stop the recording. So I was able to keep using Bandicam to do 9.9 World of Tanks replays, no problem. But the fact that that World of Warships, it was just the timing of it, basically. And I don't know why it was different, but anyway. But what has changed, and it's not new recording software, this is still Bandicam, is that I can now use the other recording mode that Bandicam has, which is a screen recording option. And it basically, you define which screen you want it to record, and it's like recording a square on the screen, except you're recording the whole screen. And for some reason, under Windows 7, that wasn't working properly, at least with World of Warships. I'd get a couple of seconds of motion, and then the rest of it would just be a frozen frame. But now I've upgraded to Windows 10, it has magically started working again, and I don't know why. But that means I can now bring you viewer replays from World of Warships as well as World of Tanks. So there we go. That's a very long-winded way of saying what I could have just said very quickly, but I felt like there should be some explanation of exactly why I was having difficulty. Anyway, this is Bad Tanker, and he is in the infamous Minekaze, and that's actually getting nerfed in the next patch, and probably deservedly so. It is worth noting even that he is using the stock torpedoes on this, and I think he mentions at one point in the battle chat that this is his first battle, although he may have spent free XP on some things, I'm not sure. But in his email he doesn't say if it is or not, so I don't actually know. Now, there's no kind of replay sharing site for World of Warships replays, so if you're going to send me one, I mean, it's the usual replays address, but make sure you mark it as a World of Warships replay, and you have to make sure that you put score screens in as well, because I have no idea, no way of seeing scores otherwise. But Bad Tanker here did, and you'll get to see at the end that the score's going to be very good indeed. But yeah, he's taken a big hit there, and of course one of the defining characteristics of destroyers is not only do they not have a lot of armour, but they don't have a lot of hit points. But they make up for that with having a very, 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 very powerful form of attack in their torpedoes. And the Minekaze in particular, I think it's probably more infamous for its 10-kilometre torpedoes, but as you're going to see in this battle, yes, the stock torpedoes, which have less range but are faster, can be just as devastating. So this is actually a replay from, I think, the previous version of the game. At the moment we're on 0.4.0 something, I don't know. The next one's going to be 0.4.1, and this is probably from 0.3. I don't even know. But it is actually playing on the most recent version of the client, so that's fine. At least for now, I don't have to just save separate copies of the World of Warships clients, which I've been doing for a while now with World of Tanks, but I might have to at some point. So he spotted that bogue. He's basically, I mean, this has been very high risk what he's been doing, the position he's taken on the map, because he got quite close to a whole bunch, or well within firing range of a whole bunch of enemy cruisers, and got detected in the process. And he's backed off a bit now, and it's paid off because he's just absolutely annihilated that bogue. Meanwhile, he's quite well within the detection range of this Phoenix. And yes, taking a bit of fire, but The ships that are shooting at him are, I think, mostly on the 10 line, and so therefore the range means that he's got a much better chance of dodging them. The Phoenix, meanwhile, is not really firing at him. That is actually the most dangerous ship right now, because the Phoenix has got a pretty decent rate of fire, and it's a cruiser. Cruisers are generally quite good at taking down destroyers, but his concentration is elsewhere. And I think that's why he's gotten away with this whole maneuver, Bad Tanker, is that the ships, I mean, he couldn't tell that it was going to be the case, it was just pure guesswork, but the ships that he was engaging mostly had their attention elsewhere. And if you can guarantee that that's going to be the case, then that can be a pretty good way of being sneaky, and especially with American destroyers where you have fairly short range torpedoes, is you wait until somebody's distracted by an allied battleship or whatever, and you get up alongside them or behind them and unleash a barrage of torpedoes. But in Bad Tanker's case, I think there was an element of luck there, because he had absolutely no guarantees that they wouldn't all turn and fire their guns at him when he was sailing around in that middle area. So we're going to jump cut about 45 seconds or so. He's being very cautious and skirting around outside the edge of the cap circle. He's just hunting down this other carrier, this Hosho. And actually, I have to say, I do prefer hunting carriers in my American destroyers than my Japanese ones, because the Japanese ones, you're much more relying on your torpedoes. And I've actually had the experience of, I mean, because the Japanese destroyer guns turn so very poorly, I've had the experience of trying to hunt down carriers and being spotted, and at which point there was a very recent example where it was me trying to take down a carrier, but there was also another carrier not that far away, and they basically turned all their torpedo bombers on me. And they were good carrier players, or at least one of them was, because he was making manual drops. And even in a destroyer, if somebody's making a manual drop only a kilometre away from you, you can't dodge it very well at all. And because I was in a Japanese destroyer, I could not get my guns on him to set him on fire to stop him sending more planes after me. And because I was detected at a reasonably long range, I was having to take all kinds of evasive maneuvers to try and get closer and launch my torpedoes, and he was able to dodge out those longer ranges. Whereas if it had been an American destroyer, I could have kept my guns on him a lot more easily, and so therefore I probably at the very least could have set him on fire. Anyway, so that's that second carrier down. Meanwhile, well, it was looking fairly healthy on numbers. We went from, what was it, 7-5 to 7-7 very quickly indeed. And we're actually at a disadvantage now because we've got both the carriers left, but both the remaining battleships, well, they're both Wyomings. One of them we know is fairly good health, the other we have no idea. And the fact is that we have, well, only one of them that's even really near the cap circle. The other one is quite far back. In fact, he appears to be reversing. He's on the J line and he is actually reversing up towards the map border. I don't know, I really don't. But anyway, they're trying to cap. And actually that Murmansk there is one that Bad Tanker put some torpedoes into before, so he's very low health. You can see there's a Kuma there that's also exceptionally low health, so one torpedo apiece will do for those. There's also a battleship that's a Wyoming, I believe that is. I think that's the Wyoming. Yeah, the New York is further back. He's very high health, but the torpedoes on this, well, you get 3 launchers firing 2 apiece, so you can put out a fair number of torpedoes with a single, a full salvo. Even with his high health, he only needs like 2 spreads to actually take that guy. So it's all a matter of not panicking, basically. And he could be using his guns here. And in fact, maybe he could have gotten off a shot or 2 because he's well within detection range. But almost certainly, because he's coming from the north, because the remaining ships are in quite different directions, their attentions are almost certainly, in this situation, going to be elsewhere. So actually, even though he did sail within detection range of that Murmansk before it died, and they now know for sure that he's here, they are being attacked from 3 sides, and this is absolutely ideal for a destroyer. You want to be looking for opportunities like this, where you can come in from a direction they're not expecting, and actually take advantage of them being totally distracted. So that Kuma managed to run aground. Maybe he had deliberately run aground to try and protect himself from fire. I don't know. I mean, we've got that Wyoming that's within render range. We can see that he's been taking a lot of attention. He's very low health now indeed. Meanwhile, the other Wyoming is still backing up to the map border. No, I don't know. But most of these torps miss. However, one of the final widespread actually does its job. So yeah, I think that was a good call, because with a widespread you're more likely to get one or two kind of single hits, but you're not going to get a concentrated punch as you will with the narrow spread. However, sometimes one hit is all you need. Now he's moving up on the Wyoming, and he's just been detected by a spotter aircraft. But again, the Wyoming's guns are almost certainly not pointed in his direction, so although this guy is moving away from him, and that makes getting your torps onto somebody harder, and yeah, you might as well take out this spotter aircraft if he knows he's detected, he has got some leeway. As long as he doesn't get too close, within secondary range, as long as the ships are firing at something else, he's going to be fine. However, apart from that one remaining carrier, well, the other Wyoming that was back there on the J line died. The remaining Wyoming is not going to stand up to much punishment. And I actually thought initially that this enemy Wyoming was playing fairly smart. He knows that there's a destroyer around. Bad Tanker has been spotted. And he seems to, for these first, I mean the first spread missed entirely because he changed course. And this salvo here, and there we go, I think that was a secondary battery. Not sure. But he appears, and he doesn't really seem to be taking evasive action in terms of his course, but he drops his speed. And if you know that there is a destroyer dropping torpedoes at you from range, and you can see that they all comfortably miss, that is, even just on its own, that can be a fairly effective way. But of course, the very best way to try and avoid torpedoes is to both drop your speed and turn at the same time. And in fact, that can be a good tactic to use against battleship drivers. Even if you know your torpedoes aren't necessarily going to have a good chance of hitting them, you can almost use them to suppress a battleship. Now, unfortunately, the friendly Wyoming's dead, you might have noticed, but yeah, because they have to turn to avoid your torpedoes, that means their turrets potentially will be out of position. However, having initially said he seemed like he was doing a good job of avoiding the torpedoes, he then just apparently forgets everything he ever knew. And he knows Bad Tanker's still here. He should be taking much more evasive action than he is. He should be turning, he should be making it harder, and this is not a good position to be in a battleship against a destroyer that you can't see. I have been in this position myself in battleships, and it's not fun. You end up relying on teammates. Unfortunately for this Wyoming, his teammate in the New York, instead of grouping up with him, has gone chasing off after the carrier. That carrier's out of planes, and if that New York had been in the cap circle when everyone else was in the cap circle, this game would have been over already. They probably would have been able to win by cap. I say probably, it's not guaranteed. But instead, with time rapidly ticking away, we're down to the 2-minute mark now. He's gone chasing after this host show, and he's firing AP shells at him, apparently. And his team's not very impressed with this guy's performance, I have to say. But firing AP shells at the Hyosho, it's the Hyosho? That's a word. It's taking him a long time to kill because they're just overmatching, and therefore not doing as much damage as HE shells probably would have. Now he kills the guy, but he can't win for his team at this point. He's sacrificed any chance of making this a victory by chasing after that carrier. Bad Tanker, on the other hand, very much still does have a chance of winning this, because he can stay out this guy's view range and just drop torpedoes against him. And I think we can already guess, just from his tactical decisions so far that the New York driver is not the best player of battleships, or just the best player of World of Warships in the world. And we have no idea of knowing if he's got sixth sense or not on his captain, but he's managed to get to a tier 5 battleship, so you would presume so. You would presume that he knows he's been spotted, and you would presume that the last remaining destroyer, knowing where he is, would come after him. Instead, you know, he takes 3 torpedo hits, and he's now, I think, an easy one-shot. Now we're down to the last... Well, the timer is rapidly running out. I mean, there's really not much time left at all now. It's 30 seconds. This is it. This is the salvo. If Bad Tanker's torpedoes don't make it, then this is a draw. And he actually does do a very risky thing at this point. He opens fire, and you can kind of see the guy's guns are pointed in a completely different direction. So it's not that risky, but it's still a bit risky, because one good hit from that guy would kill Bad Tanker in his current state. But instead, he takes the guy out. And that's that. So 400,000 credits earned, over 400,000, 23 torpedo hits, 6 kills. And that got him, what, 2 devastating strikes. I think that's a Confederate and a high caliber. I haven't quite gotten my recognition of all the awards there yet. But base XP wise, over 3,000. 3 times, almost 3 times as good as the next best player on his team. So, in anything else than a Minekaze, that probably would have been difficult, but look at that, 187,000 torpedo damage. He barely had to use his guns at all in that one. And in fact, he really shouldn't have used his guns right at the end there, but it didn't matter as it turned out. So, does the Minekaze need that nerf that it's going to get? Yes. Yes, it does. I think it's still going to be pretty good, but even so, I think you'd be hard-pressed to do that in a Nicholas. You maybe could in a Gremiashi, I don't know. But yeah, that was a bit silly. So there we go. My inaugural viewer replay for World of Warships. You can leave your thoughts and comments about it below. You can hit the like button. You can send these into the usual place. I will reiterate that. And as always, stay tuned for more.